The Pinewood Heights condominium complex sits nestled between towering oak trees and manicured lawns, a quiet sanctuary for professionals seeking refuge from the chaos of downtown life. I had purchased Unit 204 2 years ago, attracted by its modern amenities and the promise of a peaceful work environment. The open-concept living room had been transformed into my ideal home office, with ergonomic furniture and a powerful desktop setup positioned perfectly by the east-facing window. As a software developer working remotely, my livelihood depended entirely on a stable, high-speed internet connection. I had specifically chosen this unit for its fiber optic internet capabilities, paying extra for the premium package that guaranteed speeds necessary for video conferences, cloud computing, and large file transfers. My morning routine was sacred: wake at 6, prepare coffee, and settle in for productive hours of coding before the world fully awakened. I valued structure, reliability, and most importantly, uninterrupted connectivity. My neighbors had always been respectful of boundaries, save for occasional nods in the hallway or brief conversations at the mailboxes. Unit 206, directly adjacent to mine, had been vacant for 3 months until Karen Westfield moved in. She introduced herself during the monthly HOA meeting, announcing her previous experience on 2 homeowners associations and her intention to bring some necessary order to our community. There was something in her tone that day, a certain rigidity that made several residents exchange uncomfortable glances. Our first direct interaction occurred when she knocked on my door during a critical client meeting. She complained about my excessive typing noise that apparently disturbed her afternoon television programs. I apologized and promised to place a dampening mat under my keyboard, though I knew the sound could not possibly travel through our well-insulated shared wall. That evening, I received an email from the HOA about noise complaints from an unnamed resident. The first signs of trouble with my internet began approximately 2 weeks after Karen moved in. During an important video presentation to potential investors, my screen froze for 30 seconds before disconnecting entirely. I apologized profusely to the clients, restarted my router, and managed to reconnect, attributing the issue to temporary service disruption. The following day, it happened again during my team stand-up meeting, then again while uploading critical project files. I contacted my internet service provider, who ran remote diagnostics, and assured me everything looked normal on their end. They suggested I monitor my router for unauthorized connections, but all security protocols seemed intact. The technician mentioned that bandwidth usage seemed unusually high during certain hours, but could not determine the cause remotely. The strange part was the timing. These disruptions always seemed to occur between 1 and 4 in the afternoon, then again in the evening around 8. I began noticing subtle movements and sounds from the shared wall during these times, footsteps approaching, then retreating, occasionally accompanied by the soft sound of furniture being repositioned. The situation escalated one Tuesday afternoon when I heard an unfamiliar mechanical whirring sound coming from the wall. I pressed my ear against the surface, feeling vibrations that suggested someone was using power tools. The sound lasted for approximately 5 minutes before stopping abruptly. That evening, while retrieving a fallen pen near the baseboard, I noticed something that sent a chill through my body. A perfectly circular hole, approximately half an inch in diameter, drilled cleanly through the drywall. The suspicious positioning, hidden behind my media console and directly in line with my router, set off immediate alarm bells. This was no accident or maintenance oversight. Someone had deliberately breached the wall separating our units. The discovery of the hole demanded immediate investigation. I gently probed the opening with the eraser end of a pencil, confirming it extended completely through to the other side. The precision of the cut suggested professional tools and deliberate intent. I needed evidence before making accusations, so I ordered a small wireless camera with night vision capabilities and motion detection from an online electronics store, requesting expedited delivery. The camera arrived the next morning. I positioned it discreetly on a bookshelf with clear line of sight to the suspicious hole, disguising it between literary volumes and desk accessories. The setup was painless. The device connected to my phone through a secure application that would alert me to any movement detected near the wall. With everything in place, I left for a pre-scheduled lunch meeting, anxious but determined to uncover the truth. The notification came through at precisely 1:43 p.m., vibrating against my leg during dessert. I excused myself to the restaurant bathroom and opened the application with trembling fingers. The footage playing on my screen confirmed my worst suspicions and introduced new ones. A thin, snake-like device extended through the hole from the other side, an Ethernet cable extender being carefully manipulated into position. Once through, it retracted slightly, leaving just the connection end exposed inside my apartment. Minutes later, a slender hand appeared, threading a standard Ethernet cable through the opening, stretching it toward my router table. I watched in stunned disbelief as the cable was connected to an unauthorized splitter attached to my network. The hand retreated quickly, and I heard faint celebratory sounds from the other side of the wall. The violation felt profound, not merely a technological intrusion but a physical breach of my home and privacy. I sat motionless in the restaurant bathroom stall, processing what I had witnessed. This was not random signal interference. This was calculated theft. Returning home, I documented everything meticulously. I photographed the hole, the unauthorized splitter, and saved multiple copies of the video evidence. My technical background proved useful as I accessed my router administration panel to investigate the network traffic. The logs revealed multiple unauthorized devices connecting to my network during specific timeframes: a MacBook Pro, an iPhone, and a smart television, all with identifying names containing Karen or KW in their device titles. I generated bandwidth usage reports showing pronounced spikes during the afternoons and evenings, precisely when my work calls suffered interruptions. The pattern was undeniable. Based on my service plan and the excess data usage, I calculated she had essentially stolen approximately $247 worth of internet service over the past month, not counting the professional impact of my dropped meetings and delayed project submissions. My immediate response was to change the network password and enable MAC address filtering, restricting connections to only my registered devices. This provided temporary relief as the unauthorized connections ceased for approximately 48 hours. Then, inexplicably, they reappeared in my logs. Somehow, Karen had obtained my new network credentials. I implemented additional security measures: hidden SSID, complex password generation, even scheduled router restarts, but each solution lasted only briefly before the intrusions resumed. The technological cat-and-mouse game continued for days, with each security measure being circumvented through means I could not identify. The hole in the wall remained, a perpetual reminder of the boundary violation occurring in my home. The evidence was conclusive. The digital fingerprints aligned perfectly with the physical breach. My neighbor had deliberately drilled into my wall to steal my internet connection, and she seemed determined to maintain access regardless of my security measures. The time had come for direct confrontation. The morning before confronting Karen, I organized all evidence into a clear, chronological presentation. I printed router logs showing unauthorized access, camera footage screenshots with date stamps, and photographs of the physical damage to my wall. I rehearsed my approach in the mirror, practicing a calm, factual delivery that would avoid unnecessary escalation while clearly communicating the seriousness of her actions. At precisely 5:30 p.m., when I knew she would be home based on her regular schedule, I stood outside Unit 206 with my evidence folder tucked under my arm. My heart pounded against my ribs as I raised my hand to knock, 3 measured taps against the polished wood. I heard movement inside, footsteps approaching, a brief pause at the peephole, and then the metallic sound of a security chain being removed. The door opened to reveal Corinne in casual but immaculate attire, her highlighted blonde hair perfectly styled despite the late afternoon hour. Her welcoming smile faltered slightly upon recognizing me, quickly recovering into a practiced expression of neighborly concern. "Well, hello there. What can I do for you this evening?" Her voice carried the artificial sweetness of someone accustomed to maintaining appearances regardless of circumstances. I maintained steady eye contact while keeping my tone neutral and professional. "Good evening, Corinne. I need to discuss an important matter regarding our shared wall and my internet connection. May I come in briefly?" Her eyes narrowed imperceptibly, but she stepped aside with a gesture that somehow managed to seem both inviting and reluctant. "Of course, though I am preparing dinner. I can spare a few minutes." The interior of her apartment mirrored mine in layout, but was decorated in stark whites and chromes, minimalist and impeccably organized. I remained standing despite her gesture toward a pristine white sofa, preferring to maintain equal footing for the conversation ahead. "I have discovered something concerning that I believe you should be aware of," I began, opening the folder. "There appears to be an unauthorized connection accessing my internet service through a hole that has been drilled through our shared wall." Her reaction was immediate and practiced, eyes widening in exaggerated shock, one hand moving to her chest in a theatrical display of offense. "What exactly are you implying? That sounds like a serious structural issue you should report to management." I maintained my composure, sliding the first photograph across the coffee table toward her. "This is the hole discovered in my unit. It aligns perfectly with your living room wall. And this," I presented the second image, "is camera footage showing an Ethernet cable being fed through from your side." "That could be anyone or anything. These images prove nothing." Her voice had lost its sweetness, replaced by defensive indignation. Perhaps maintenance was checking for electrical issues. I proceeded methodically, presenting the router logs showing device names clearly containing her initials. "These unauthorized devices have been connecting to my network during specific hours, causing service disruptions that have affected my work. The devices are labeled Corinne iPhone and Corinne MacBook." Her posture shifted subtly, shoulders squaring, jaw tightening. The pretense of confusion gradually gave way to something colder as she realized the extent of my evidence. "You cannot possibly prove those devices belong to me. Many people have similar names. The MAC addresses match devices connecting from your exact location," I continued, revealing the technical data. "The internet service provider has confirmed unusual usage patterns originating from this physical location." The decisive moment came when I played the video from my phone, clear footage of the cable being manipulated through the wall, followed by the sound of her voice from the other side celebrating successful connection. The color drained from her face as her own words played back. "Finally connected. Take that, overpriced internet companies." Her demeanor transformed completely. The facade of neighborly propriety vanished, replaced by calculating defensiveness. She crossed her arms and straightened her posture, meeting my gaze with newfound intensity. "Do you have any idea what they charge for decent internet in this building?" Her voice had dropped to a lower register, all pretense abandoned. "You have the premium package with unlimited data that you barely use during certain hours. I am simply borrowing your excess bandwidth when you do not need it." The audacity of her justification left me momentarily speechless. She continued before I could respond. "This is exactly the problem with people nowadays, so unwilling to share resources that go unused. You would never even have noticed if not for your obsessive monitoring." She spoke with the conviction of someone who truly believed her actions were justified. I found my voice again. "Corinne, drilling into my wall is property damage. Accessing my network without permission is theft of services. Both are potentially criminal actions that—" She cut me off with a dismissive wave. "Oh, please, spare me the lecture. Do you know who I am in this community?" Her lips curved into a smile that never reached her eyes. "I sit on the HOA board. I have lunch with the property manager every Thursday. My husband golfs with the regional manager of your internet provider." She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a near whisper. "File your complaints if you must. See how quickly maintenance responds to your future requests. Notice how thoroughly your lease renewal application gets scrutinized. Consider how many anonymous noise complaints might start appearing in your file." The threat hung in the air between us, unmistakable in its clarity. She was not merely defending her actions. She was establishing the consequences of challenging her authority. I gathered my evidence without breaking eye contact, maintaining my composure despite the anger building inside. "I will expect the wall to be repaired and the unauthorized connection removed immediately," I stated firmly, moving toward the door. Her parting words followed me into the hallway. "Be careful which battles you choose, neighbor. Some fights are not worth the trouble they bring." As I returned to my apartment, the initial shock of her admission gave way to a deeper realization. This confrontation had revealed something beyond the theft of internet service. It had exposed a fundamental imbalance of power and a disregard for boundaries that would not be easily addressed through conventional means. The evidence folder in my hands suddenly felt inadequate against the systemic advantages she wielded so confidently. A new emotion began to form beneath my professional exterior, determination fueled by the injustice of her threats and the violation of my home. The morning after my confrontation with Corinne, I began researching proper channels for resolution, determined to address the situation through established procedures. The condominium bylaws contained clear sections prohibiting unauthorized modifications to shared walls and explicit language against theft of services. The violation seemed straightforward, requiring only the presentation of evidence to the appropriate authorities for resolution. My first step was drafting a formal complaint to the Homeowners Association. I compiled a comprehensive document including timestamped photographs, video evidence, technical logs, and a detailed chronological account of events. The 23-page report represented hours of meticulous documentation, formatted according to the official complaint procedures outlined in our community handbook. I submitted the file both electronically and in physical form, requesting an emergency review given the ongoing property damage and service theft. The acknowledgement came 3 days later, a form email stating they had received my complaint and would address it during the next scheduled board meeting in 2 weeks. My request for expedited review was denied without explanation. For 14 days, I continued documenting each unauthorized access to my network while the hole in my wall remained untouched, a constant reminder of the ongoing violation. The HOA meeting took place in the community center, a sterile room with uncomfortable folding chairs arranged in precise rows facing a long table where 5 board members sat reviewing papers. I arrived 15 minutes early, carrying additional copies of my evidence, and prepared to present my case clearly and factually. Karen arrived shortly after, exchanging warm greetings with each board member, her hand lingering on shoulders with familiar squeezes that communicated established relationships. When my case was finally called, last on the agenda despite its urgent nature, the board chairman barely glanced at the evidence folders distributed to each member. We have reviewed the preliminary materials submitted regarding a disputed use of Internet services between Units 204 and 206, he began, his tone suggesting the matter was already resolved in his mind. Karen sat confidently at the end of the board table, occasionally leaning to whisper comments to the woman beside her, who nodded with understanding smiles. As I presented the evidence of the drilled hole and unauthorized connection, several board members exchanged glances, their expressions revealing predetermined conclusions. While we understand your concern, the chairman concluded after my presentation, this appears to be a civil dispute between neighbors regarding shared utilities. The HOA recommends mediation services available through the County Dispute Resolution Center. Regarding the wall modification, we will need to conduct an assessment to determine if it constitutes material damage to the building structure, which typically requires a filing fee of $350 for inspection. The deliberate roadblocks were transparent. Excessive fees, prolonged timelines, and bureaucratic requirements designed to exhaust my patience and resources. When I attempted to address the clear violations of specific bylaw sections, another board member interrupted, stating that interpretation of bylaws required legal consultation that could be arranged at my expense. The meeting concluded with no actionable resolution, only recommendations for processes that would extend the issue indefinitely. Frustrated but undeterred, I visited the local police station the following morning to file a report for property damage and theft of services. The officer at the desk listened patiently, reviewed my evidence with professional interest, and entered information into the system. His conclusion, however, was equally disappointing. "This falls into a somewhat gray area," he explained, handing me a case number card. "The property damage is minimal in dollar amount, and internet theft is difficult to prosecute without the service provider initiating the complaint. Since you share a wall in a condominium setting, this will likely be classified as a civil rather than criminal matter." My next attempt was contacting my internet service provider directly. After navigating through 4 automated menus and speaking with 3 different representatives, I finally reached someone in the security department. They confirmed the unauthorized access from my logs, but explained their policy limitations. "We can document this for your account and help you secure your network with additional measures," the technician offered. "But in terms of pursuing action against your neighbor, our recommendations are limited to working things out directly or seeking resolution through your property management company." Each attempted solution led to the same outcome: sympathetic acknowledgement followed by procedural dead ends. My property management company redirected me to the HOA. The HOA suggested private mediation or legal counsel. Legal counsel advised that the cost of litigation would far exceed the damages recoverable. The circular pattern of referrals and deferrals made the systematic protection of Karen's behavior undeniable. Returning home after weeks of futile institutional appeals, I stood in my living room looking at the hole that remained in my wall. The unauthorized connections continued despite my security measures, and Karen now made a point of smiling knowingly whenever we passed in the hallway. The realization settled heavily upon me. The traditional paths to justice were effectively closed by design, accessible only to those with institutional connections or resources beyond my means. That evening, sitting in the artificial glow of my computer screen, I made a decision that would change the direction of this conflict entirely. If the system could not provide justice, perhaps technology could provide protection. I opened a new browser window and began researching alternative solutions to network security breaches, determined to reclaim what was rightfully mine. The blue light of my computer screen illuminated my face until the early hours of the morning as I dove deep into research mode. My initial searches focused on conventional network protection, advanced firewall configurations, intrusion detection systems, and signal boosters that might help me maintain connectivity despite Karen's interference. These solutions, while technically sound, failed to address the physical breach of my wall or prevent determined access attempts. I expanded my search to include legal technologies for wireless network protection. The term signal jammer appeared frequently in security forums, leading me down a complicated path of FCC regulations and potential legal consequences. Most commercial jamming devices were illegal for civilian use, carrying significant penalties for deployment even on private property. The risk of legal repercussions exceeded the benefit of stopping Karen's internet theft. I needed something effective, but within legal boundaries. Around 3 a.m., bleary-eyed but determined, I discovered an article about directional sound technology used in museums to create localized audio experiences for visitors standing in specific spots. Unlike omnidirectional speakers that project sound in all directions, these systems focused audio waves into precise locations, creating the effect of hearing sound only when positioned in a particular area. The military had adapted similar technology for non-lethal deterrence in conflict zones. This led me to research audio deterrence and their psychological effects. Studies showed that certain sounds could create discomfort without causing physical harm, essentially making specific areas unpleasant to occupy. The key insight came from a wildlife management forum discussing humane methods for deterring animals from gardens and farms. Apparently, certain high-pitched, irregular sounds were particularly effective at creating discomfort without causing harm. A specialty audio engineering discussion board provided the critical information I needed, a thread detailing sounds that humans find most unbearable. Topping the list were irregular, unpredictable vocalizations that prevented mental filtering or adaptation. Among these, goat bleating ranked surprisingly high due to its variable pitch, unpredictable timing, and strident overtones. Unlike consistent mechanical noises that the brain eventually tunes out, the irregular patterns of goat vocalizations continually reactivated the auditory attention system, making them nearly impossible to ignore. I began collecting and testing goat sound recordings, analyzing their acoustic properties, and editing them for maximum psychological impact. Some bleats were high-pitched and frantic, others deep and prolonged. I created a composite audio file that combined the most attention-grabbing characteristics, ensuring the sequence never established a predictable pattern that could be mentally filtered. The technical implementation would require specialized equipment. I sourced components from separate vendors to maintain plausible deniability. A directional ultrasonic speaker from an educational supply company, a microcontroller from an electronics hobby shop, and network monitoring software from an open-source security repository. The hardware arrived in nondescript packages over several days, minimizing suspicion. I designed a hybrid system that would remain within legal boundaries while effectively solving my problem. Unlike illegal jammers that block all signals in an area, My device would monitor network traffic for unauthorized access attempts from specific MAC addresses. When detected, it would activate the directional speaker aimed precisely at the area of Corinne's apartment, where her devices connected to my network. The sound would be inaudible to other neighbors, but unmistakably present for anyone attempting to use stolen internet in that specific location. The system featured several important safeguards. First, it operated on legal frequencies and power levels, unlike prohibited jamming devices. Second, it activated only in response to unauthorized access attempts rather than continuously. Third, the sound projection remained contained within private property rather than affecting public spaces. These distinctions kept the solution within technical compliance while addressing the specific violation. Assembly took place over a weekend at my dining table, connecting components according to detailed schematics I had developed. I tested the directional audio capabilities by standing in different positions throughout my apartment, confirming that the sound was audible only within a narrow projection field. The goat noises played at varying volumes and patterns, creating an unsettling auditory experience that remained just below the threshold of causing actual pain. As I finalized the programming, a sense of satisfaction replaced my earlier helplessness. This solution represented more than technical ingenuity. It embodied the principle that boundaries matter and violations have consequences. The device was not merely a deterrent, but a reclamation of territory that had been invaded. With components securely assembled and software properly configured, I prepared for deployment, knowing the next phase would transform this conflict decisively. The implementation required precise timing and placement to ensure maximum effectiveness. I waited for a Tuesday morning when Corinne typically left for her weekly hair appointment, providing a 2-hour window to set up the system without interruption. The device needed to be positioned optimally for both network monitoring and directional sound projection, while remaining concealed from casual observation. I carefully measured distances and angles from the compromised wall, calculating the exact placement that would direct sound waves through the drywall and into the area where Corinne accessed my network. The bookshelf adjacent to the shared wall provided perfect concealment, with the directional speaker nestled between hardcover volumes, its narrow aperture barely visible even upon close inspection. The network monitoring component connected directly to my router through a shielded cable, allowing real-time detection of unauthorized access attempts. The programming phase required meticulous attention to detail. I configured the system to recognize specific MAC addresses associated with Corinne's devices and trigger the audio response only when those particular devices attempted connection. This selective activation would prevent false positives while creating a direct cause-and-effect relationship between her theft attempts and the consequences. The system would remain completely dormant during normal network operation, conserving power and maintaining stealth. I calibrated the audio output carefully, starting at lower volumes that would gradually increase if connection attempts persisted. The GOAT sound file contained over 40 minutes of non-repeating bleats, ensuring Corinne could not become accustomed to predictable patterns. The irregular nature of the sounds, some short and sharp, others prolonged and undulating, created maximum psychological discomfort without crossing into harmful sound pressure levels. With physical installation complete and software properly configured, I initiated a comprehensive test sequence. A simulated unauthorized connection attempt triggered the system flawlessly, projecting directional audio that was clearly audible in the target area but barely perceptible just 3 feet away. The sound quality was remarkable, authentic GOAT vocalizations that seemed to emanate from within the walls themselves rather than from an identifiable source. The moment of truth arrived at precisely 2:17 p.m. that afternoon, when my network monitoring dashboard detected an unauthorized connection attempt from Karen MacBook. Within seconds, the system activated according to programming parameters, directing the first sequence of goat bleats toward the specific location of the intrusion. Through my window, I glimpsed movement in Karen's apartment as she visibly reacted to the sudden sound, looking around in confusion. The first deployment exceeded expectations. Through discreet observation, I watched as Karen moved frantically around her living room, checking walls and ceiling corners for the source of the mysterious sound. She unplugged several devices, adjusted her television settings, and eventually relocated to another room with her laptop. The moment she attempted to reconnect from the new location, the directional audio followed, precisely targeting her position. Her confusion provided immense satisfaction as she shook her devices, restarted her computer, and made what appeared to be frustrated phone calls, likely to technical support services. The beauty of the system lay in its perfect deniability. The sounds were audible only to her, in specific locations, and only when attempting unauthorized access. Without admitting to the original theft, she could not reasonably complain about mysterious goat sounds that no one else could verify. Over the following days, Karen attempted various countermeasures that I monitored with growing amusement. When she tried connecting during evening hours, the system detected the change in pattern and adjusted accordingly, switching to nocturnal goat vocalizations that carried particularly haunting qualities in the quiet nighttime hours. When she attempted to shield her devices with what appeared to be homemade signal boosters constructed from aluminum foil, the system automatically increased its disruption radius to compensate. The technological chess match continued with increasingly desperate moves from Karen. She tried positioning herself in different corners of her apartment, only to find the directional audio following with uncanny precision. She purchased what appeared to be noise-canceling headphones, which proved ineffective against the variable frequencies deliberately programmed into the goat sounds. She even attempted to operate during odd hours, perhaps hoping the system would be inactive, only to discover its 24/7 vigilance. The elegant beauty of my solution lay in its perfect balance, completely effective yet impossible to prove or complain about. Each time Karen attempted to steal my internet, the consequence was immediate and directly proportional. When she ceased her attempts, the apartment returned to peaceful silence. The cause and effect relationship established a clear boundary without requiring external enforcement. After approximately 10 days of consistent deployment, I noticed a significant reduction in unauthorized access attempts. Karen's devices appeared less frequently in my network logs, suggesting the deterrent was achieving its primary objective. Through careful observation of her daily movements, I noted signs of increasing stress, dark circles under her eyes, jumpiness when encountering unexpected sounds in common areas, and a haunted expression whenever maintenance workers visited nearby units. The most satisfying aspect of the implementation was its invisibility to everyone except its intended target. Neighbors noticed nothing unusual, building management had no complaints to investigate, and my internet connection returned to its previous reliable state. The hole in the wall remained, a physical reminder of the boundary violation that had initiated this technological response, but the active intrusion had effectively ceased. As I monitored the system's ongoing operation, I realized this solution represented more than technical ingenuity. It embodied the principle that justice, when denied through conventional channels, sometimes requires creative alternatives that operate within the boundaries of what is permissible while effectively enforcing what is right. The signal jammer with its goat noise payload had become an instrument of poetic justice, turning Karen's own secretive behavior into the perfect vehicle for her consequences. 3 weeks into the sonic deterrence campaign, the cumulative effect on Karen became increasingly evident. Our previously brief encounters in hallways and common areas revealed physical manifestations of stress, disheveled appearance, nervous mannerisms, and a startled reaction to innocuous sounds. She actively avoided eye contact during HOA meetings, choosing seats distant from mine and departing hurriedly when sessions concluded. The transformation from confident intimidator to anxious avoider represented a profound shift in our power dynamic. The critical moment of resolution arrived unexpectedly on a Wednesday morning as I collected mail from the community mailboxes. Karen emerged from the elevator, her typically immaculate appearance noticeably diminished. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her hair lacked its usual precise styling, and she clutched her phone with white-knuckled intensity. Upon seeing me, she froze momentarily before marching forward with unexpected directness. "I know what you are doing," she hissed, voice low but intense enough to carry in the enclosed space. "Whatever device you have installed to block my internet access, I want it stopped immediately." Her words presented the perfect opportunity. I activated the voice recording application on my phone with a discreet motion, maintaining a neutral expression. "I am not sure what you mean about blocking internet access. I have been having connectivity issues myself recently." "Do not play innocent with me," she continued, voice rising with frustration. "Ever since I confronted you about that ridiculous complaint about my Ethernet connection through the wall, my devices have been plagued with problems. And those awful sounds, they follow me everywhere." "Sounds?" I inquired, maintaining composed curiosity. "What kind of sounds are you hearing?" "Like animals, horrible bleating noises that never stop." Her composure cracked further as she continued. "They start every time I try to establish a connection through that hole. It cannot possibly be coincidence." The admission echoed in the quiet mailroom, a clear, unambiguous confession of the unauthorized wall modification and connection attempts. My phone captured every word as she continued her unintentional revelation. "I have tried everything, moved my router, adjusted my computer settings, even called an electrician who found nothing wrong. It has to be you, interfering somehow with my legitimate attempt to access internet services." "Your legitimate attempt," I repeated carefully, "through a hole you drilled in our shared wall without permission." She realized her mistake too late, eyes widening with the recognition of her inadvertent confession. She attempted recovery, voice lowering to a threatening whisper. "You cannot prove anything, and if you are responsible for those horrible sounds, that constitutes harassment." "Interesting that you would hear sounds only when attempting unauthorized access to my network," I responded calmly, "particularly since I have not heard any unusual noises myself. Perhaps you should report these auditory experiences to your doctor." Our conversation ended abruptly as another resident entered the mailroom, but the damage to Karen's position was irreversible. That evening, I prepared a comprehensive package for delivery to the property management company and HOA board. The original evidence of wall damage and network intrusion, now supplemented with a clear audio recording of Karen's confession. The emergency HOA meeting convened 3 days later with unprecedented attendance from residents curious about the specially called session. The board chairman opened proceedings with uncharacteristic seriousness, nodding that serious allegations requiring immediate address had been brought forward with substantial evidence. Karen sat rigidly in her usual position at the end of the board table, though notably without the familiar expressions of camaraderie from other members. When the recording played through the room speakers, Karen's own voice provided irrefutable confirmation of actions she had previously denied. The property manager's expression shifted visibly from professional neutrality to genuine shock as the full nature of the violation became apparent. Board members exchanged uncomfortable glances, suddenly aware of their previous dismissal of legitimate complaints. The resolution came swiftly and decisively. Karen was immediately removed from the HOA board through unanimous vote, citing conduct unbecoming a representative of community interests. The property management company issued a formal violation notice requiring professional repair of the wall within 7 days, with all costs directed to Karen's unit. Most satisfying was the mandate for a written apology acknowledging the violations and agreeing to cease all unauthorized network access attempts. Within days, professional contractors arrived to properly repair the damaged wall, restoring the integrity of my home. The invoice, as directed, was sent directly to Unit 206. The unauthorized connection attempt ceased completely, and my internet service returned to its previous reliable performance. Most telling was Karen's noticeable absence from community events and her subdued demeanor when our paths occasionally crossed. 1 month after resolution, I received notification of Karen's intent to sell her unit and relocate. The property listing appeared shortly thereafter, describing the space as perfect for professionals seeking quiet, respectful neighbors. The irony was not lost on community members familiar with recent events. As I sat in my office enjoying uninterrupted connectivity while finalizing an important project, I reflected on the experience with newfound perspective. The conventional systems designed to protect homeowners had initially failed, requiring creative problem-solving to achieve just resolution. The signal jammer with its goat noise payload had served not merely as revenge, but as a catalyst for truth, creating circumstances where Karen's own actions and words ultimately provided the evidence necessary for proper consequences. The experience reinforced important principles about boundaries, justice, and standing firm against intimidation. Sometimes the most effective response to those who abuse power is not direct confrontation but strategic patience, creating conditions where they ultimately defeat themselves. As for the custom-built device that had served its purpose so effectively, I carefully disassembled it and stored the components away. Justice had been served, boundaries restored, and the haunting bleats of digital goats had returned to silence.